Yeah, team. So this is today's agenda. In the previous session, we already discussed about function and function declarations concept. And on today, we are going to see the other two ways to write the functions in JavaScript. One of them is function expression. Next one is arrow function. Once these two topics are completed, we can enter into non-primitive data types that is called as object. And then we will discuss about arrays as well as objects, advanced data types actually, and also the basic operations that we can perform on both arrays as well as objects also. So first of all, let us see what is function expression and how it differs from the function declaration. In the previous session, we have seen the way to write the functions. So these are the programs we have taken in the previous session. So from that programs, let me pick one of them. So for example, if we take this program here, it is a function. So if you want to write a function in JavaScript, we have followed this kind of approach till now. We will start with function keyword, and after that we can write the name of the function, and within the parenthesis we can write the parameters here. So some functions do not need the parameters, because if the function do not need external data, then the parameters are not required. If the function requires data from outside as inputs, then parameters are mandatory. So depending upon the requirement, we can provide the necessary number of parameters here. Parameters are just variables, and then we can write the logic within the function itself. And to activate the function, we can call the function as usually by sending the values that are matched to the arguments. Okay, so here two parameters are there, so we are sending two arguments. And more important thing is, almost every function returns the result after the business logic is completed. At the time, so we have to provide the left hand side variable to store the value returned by this function. Okay, so this concept is also completed here successfully. So this is the topic we discussed about the functions, and technically we can call this as the function declaration. We can call this as the function declaration technically. So in the function declaration, the syntax will be like this. We can write the function keyword, and after that we can write the name of the function, and then the rest of the things is clearly available. This is one of the ways to write functions in JavaScript. Today we are going to see the other way to write the functions. Let me copy this. So I would like to create one more program here. So function declaration we can take here. So this is the function declaration. Let me connect this with this HTML document. So everything is ready. We can start working with this program. Okay, now the function is ready. Technically, we can call this as the function declaration. And now we can write the same function declaration in the form of expression also. This can be called as function expression. Generally, what is an expression? Generally, expression contains some variable and some assignment operation is called as some expression basically. So a function can also be written as an expression in JavaScript. Okay, because functions very important features of JavaScript. We can also call this function as first class objects in JavaScript. Of course, I will teach you all these advanced topics one by one in future. But remember, as of now, function is very special in JavaScript. That's why many approaches are there to write a function. One of them is the function declaration. We already discussed about the function declaration, and we wrote a lot of functions and so many examples and use cases in the form of the function declarations. Now I'm going to write the same function in the form of an expression. So function expression means we can store the entire function in a variable. For example, if I take something like if x is equal to 10, what does it mean? The value 10 is stored in the variable x. Okay, so next, if I write hi here, the value hi is stored in the variable x. Okay, that means in JavaScript or in any programming language, the primitive values can be stored into this variable. 100 is the primitive value, can be stored into the variable. But in JavaScript, along with the primitive values, we can store a function also. You can assign the function also to a variable like this. Now this entire function is assigned to this variable. It is also possible. Now this is called as function expression. Now, what is the difference between function declaration and function expression, which should be used in our programming? The first difference is when you are writing the function declaration, we can mention the name of the function. But in the function expression, so we no need to write the function name actually. We can write the function keyword. After that, we can write the pair of parentheses and the parameters, etc. That means this function has no name. The functions which do not have name are called as anonymous functions. So note down the important terminology, guys, because in interview, people will speak to you in this terminology. So you should understand all these things. When a function do not have a name or simply a nameless function is called as anonymous function. So why we are calling this as anonymous function here means if you take this function, it do not have the name. So why we have taken this? Generally, what is the need of name of the function? Whenever we want to use this function, we should know the name so that the function should have the name. Then one can call the function by using the name so that this entire function will be executed. But if the function do not have the name, that function is called as anonymous function and it do not have the name actually. So why we can remove the name for this function means here whatever the variable we are using, so that variable can store the function as usually. That means this particular variable, whatever I have taken here, for example, even I can take x also, no issues. This entire anonymous function will be stored into the variable called x. Now x is quite meaningless. That's why I would like to take this as sum of two numbers. So here, let me name it as sum of two numbers 1 and sum of two numbers 2. So just I want to show the difference between these two. That's why I have attached some number here for the name like 1 and 2. This is called as function expression. Okay, now the first question is, now I want to call this function. How can I do that? So it's quite simple. I can simply provide some left hand side variable like result1 is equal to, so here I can write sum of the functions and I can pass value 10, 20. So calling the function is quite easy because we know the name of the function so that we can call it and we can get the result into some variable like this. But how to call these kind of functions? So here this function actually do not have the name, but the variable which stores that function acts as the name of the function. That means you no need to worry if this function do not have the name, because the variable which stores this entire function is called as the name of the function. So if you want to call this function, simply you can use the name of the function and provide the parentheses. You can pass the values whatever you want. And as usually, this function is also returning the result. So we can write the result here to store that. So once you observe these two, only the difference is in defining the function, either in the form of declaration as well as an expression. But calling the function has no difference. So we are calling the function in the same way. But the difference here is this function has the name, but this function has no name. But the variable which stores that function acts as the name of the function. And this nameless function technically called as the anonymous functions. That means in function expression, we can simply assign or store an anonymous function into a variable, and that variable acts as the name of the function. So at the time of calling the function, so there is no difference between either function declaration or in function expression. So now let us save this program and run me. I would like to print these two. So the first one is result1 here, and now I want to print result2 here. Save it. Now we can both are executed normally. So the first one returns the value 30, whereas the second one returns the value 300. So both are same. There is no difference at all. Okay, now the next question is, what is the use of writing a function in the form of an expression? Actually, some small differences are there between function declaration and function expression, but I will teach you the differences between these two after some days. The reason is, to understand the difference, we should learn some more subject from JavaScript like hoisting, closures, okay, objects. Such kind of concepts we need to learn already to understand the differences between these two. Until then, so you can use either function declaration or function expression of your choice. Once you find the clear difference between these two, then we can decide. But my recommendation to you is, most of the times we feel more convenient to write this in the form of function expression in the form of than function declaration itself. This function declaration is very old approach, nothing special here, but this function expression is more handy when we are writing our real world programs. That's why I personally recommend to use function expressions over function declaration. But you are the beginners, so try to write the function 2 versions every time for the next 10 days at least. When I ask you to write a function, so first write the function declaration and write function expression also, so that you can practice these two, and finally you can continue to work with the function expression itself. But later, I will teach you some fundamental differences between these two to gain more knowledge to take decision. Okay, so now this function is totally ready here. This is called as function declaration as well as function expression. So here you can see the difference also. Okay, so the function expression as well as the function declaration also. The next one is arrow function. So what is basically arrow function and how can we do that? Arrow function is not a new way, actually. It is not a third way to write the function, but this is a shorthand representation for the function expression. So sometimes by using arrow functions, we can simplify the function expressions easily. So let me write arrow functions here. Remember guys, arrow function initially it will little bit confusing to you. But later we are going to use arrow functions in many situations very extensively in our application development. That's why when I just teach you, so listen to that, understand, and you can ask me the doubts, whatever you have. And from today onwards, if I ask you to write a function, so then try to write these 3 versions: function declaration, function expression, and arrow function, at least for the next 10 days continuously. Then you will get more command on these 3 representations. And from 11th day onwards, you don't need to write these 3, because we are going to use only one of them in a particular situation and what to decide. So this knowledge will really helpful to you to take the proper decision. Okay, what is arrow function? First of all, function declaration, function expression, these two are 2 different ways to write functions in JavaScript. Arrow function is not a different way to write the function. It is a simple representation of function expression. That is the first point one should understand. Okay, so this is not a third way to write the function. It is the way to simplify the function expression. So if someone want to understand arrow function, first they should know about function expression. Once they know about the function expression, then we can decide how to simplify this. Now let me take the same example. I will show you how can we simplify this in the form of arrow functions. The first thing, let me change the name, because that variable name I have already used. So what should I do? So what is the way to simplify this? The first thing is, when we are writing in function expression in the form of arrow function, we can first remove the function keyword. It is not required. So this is called as the simplified version of the function expression. Okay, so arrow function can also be called as simplified version of function expression or simple representation of the function expression, and it is not a third way to write the functions in JavaScript. That's why here first I have taken the function expression, then I am trying to simplify this into an arrow function. Let us see. So what are the steps we should follow? The first thing is, function keyword is not required in arrow functions. That's why I have removed the function keyword from here. Once we remove the function keyword, then we left with only the pair of parentheses and the braces. Between the parentheses and braces, we have to write the arrow operator. We have to write the arrow operator. So arrow operator means the combination of assignment and greater than. When we keep these two, this is called as arrow operator. So when should we use this arrow operator? We have to remove the function keyword from here, and then we have to write the arrow operator. Because of this arrow operator, we can call this as the arrow function. Okay, and now let's compare these two guys. You cannot find much difference between this function expression as well as an arrow function representation also. Only function keyword has missed, except that we may not feel this as a simplified version. So now I am going to make some more simplification here. Now actually I can remove this step because I no need to find the no need to create a separate variable here to store the sum. Simply I can write a plus b. And here also I can do the same. I no need to create a separate variable unnecessarily. Simply I can calculate and dynamically return the value called as a plus b. Now you can see whenever someone calls this function, it simply calculates and returns the sum. And of course in function expression also, why I am removing this variable means, why should we take unnecessary variables here? Actually when someone call this function or any function, they expect the result. So now in place of this directly we can calculate and return it. At the time this extra variable is also not required. So try to avoid unnecessary variables in your program. As of now, the sum variable is not really mandatory. Why? Because if I call this function, it returns 30. Then why should I take one more variable here to store the result? I can calculate and return the result directly without assigning into another unnecessary variable here itself. Okay, so that one is completed. Now let's come to this part here. Let us compare this function expression and arrow function. So almost both are very similar except this function keyword. And additional benefit in this arrow function is, remember this point, when the function contains only one statement in its body. These arrow functions are useful only when the function body contains one line. Let us consider this function contains only one line in its body, and that is to return some value. At that time, you can remove these braces. That braces also not required. You can remove these braces. And then by default function keyword contains the return keyword. That's why we can remove the return keyword also. That's it guys. Now this is called as the function, arrow function. Now let us compare these two. It is 3 lines of the code. Now I have simplified this into 1 line of code. But whenever we look at this for first time, we may not feel this as the function. Because function means we have some expectations. Function keyword should be there, pair of braces should be there, return keyword should be there. So these all are required to feel it as a function. But this is also a function. Okay, but this is called as arrow function, which is simplified version of function expression. Now you can compare this function expression and the arrow function. You can feel this is more easiest way to write instead of the function expression. That's why we can use these arrow functions extensively whenever the body contains one line. But you may ask, sir, what is the guarantee that every function contains only one line of statement? No, I am not talking about every function. Only for the functions which contains one line of code, then instead of writing either function declaration or function expression, you can make it as an arrow function and you can simplify your code. If the function body contains more than one line, then we no need to go with arrow functions and there is no difference. And there is no benefit of using these arrow functions at all. These arrow functions are useful only when the body of the function contains one line, that to return some value. That's it. So here, this function here, actually, let me call this function and see what happened. Let result 3 is equal to, so I'm going to call this function. So calling the function, no difference at all. It is exactly same like this one. I'm passing 2 arguments and I want to print the result. That is result 3. Save it. You can see the result is 3000. So now you can observe calling the function has no difference at all. So we use the same syntax to call function declaration or function expression or arrow function. So calling the function is same, but only the difference is writing the function. The syntax we are using differs. Functionality is same, performance is same, but only the number of lines can be reduced effectively by using these arrow functions in some situations, not in every situation. So why I have taken this arrow function here means this function body contains only one statement and that is also returning some value. Then I can get the benefit of arrow functions in this way. If this function have more than one statement, even I convert this into arrow function, I do not get any special benefits. Okay, so that's why the arrow functions can be useful in some special situations only, but those special situations will occur very extensively in our React.js programming. So we will use these arrow functions extensively in our React.js programming. That's why one should know this advanced way to represent a function expression in simplified way. So now let me take this example and let me show you one more time, and then I can go for the next topic. Okay, as usually I have taken this function. First we need to observe. So how many lines of the code this body contains? If it is one line, then is it returning some value or not? Yes. The function body contains one line of code, and that is also to return some result. Then it is eligible to simplify in the form of arrow function. So what is the first thing I should do? First, I can remove the function keyword, and then I can write the arrow operator here. That is the first thing. Next, this particular parenthesis braces are also not required. So let me remove the braces. After removing the braces, if I write anything here, by default arrow function returns that value. Then the return keyword is also not mandatory, not required. We should not keep return keyword. For example, if I write return keyword, it is showing error. The reason is arrow function is already returning the result. So if you write one more return keyword here, so it leads to return two return keywords, so that it is showing the error, because the arrow function by default contains the return keyword here. So if you write a plus b, which means return will be there, return is there already, so it is equal to return a plus b. If I write 100 in this place, for example, it is nothing but return 100, not only 100. If I write some hello here, which means here it is equal to return hello. So in arrow function, so if you write something here, by default return keyword was there. That's why you should not write a specific return keyword again in the arrow function. This is the reason why this is called as the simplified version. Now I want to return a plus b, then simply I can write a plus b here, because before a plus b already return keyword was there by default in arrow functions. So it is working as usually. So this is the way to understand the concept of arrow functions, and arrow function is not a third way to write functions in JavaScript. This is the simple representation of function expression, or a function expression can be simplified in the form of arrow functions, but conditions applied. What are the conditions? So if you convert every function expression in the arrow function, you may not get the benefits of this arrow function. You can see the power of arrow functions only when the function body contains one line of code, and that too return some state, that also returning some value. At that time you can convert this, and finally this is just one line of code I have taken here, and still it is qualified as the function, but we should call it as the arrow function because of arrow operator I have placed here itself. So this is the story of arrow functions, and I'm going to write so many arrow functions in our training, because once we start discussing the fundamental operations of arrays as well as objects also, there we are going to use these arrow functions very, very extensively. So this concept is completed. So total two ways are there to write functions in JavaScript. One of them is function declaration. Next one is function expression. In function expression, an anonymous function will be assigned to a variable, and that variable will act as the name of the function. And such function expression can be simplified by using the concept of arrow functions. So this is completed. So ask me if you have any questions regarding the function declaration, function expression, and arrow functions. The interesting and important concepts of JavaScript, arrays as well as objects. So first of all, we should understand what is array and object. Remember, data need to be packed in many situations. So packing of data, what is need of packing of data? So let me take another example here. Let me connect here. Yes. it's connected successfully. Okay, for example, if I want to take one number, I have taken something like this. And I have another one. So let me take some more data here. If I have some more data, something like name is equal to, I have taken something like this. And I have some Boolean value. So something like, so, okay. Let us assume I have taken some data like this. This is the data of a particular program. Now I want to transfer this data from one function to other function, or from one application to other application, or from one part of the program to other part. How can we do that? So let us compare this with a real world example. When we are shifting to or moving to the new house, okay, so how can we transfer these things actually? So many things are there. So we cannot carry each of them individually. So one glass at a time, and one plate, one pillow, one blanket, like that. We won't transfer these particular things to the new house. Instead of that, generally what we will do, we can pack related data, related items together, related things together. That means all cloth items into one or two packs, all glass items into a separate pack, all steel vessels into a separate pack, all electronic items, or some of them at least, into a individual packs. Because of that, what is the benefit? It would be easy to move these things from one house to another house instead of carrying one by one. Very common and very normal, very generic example it is. So in program also, in many situations, it is required to transfer data from one application to other application, or from one function to other function, or from one part of the program to other part of same program. How can we transfer the data easily? For example, I have some 4 variables here. If we want to transfer this data to some other application, for example, as of now, I have to transfer them individually. First transfer A, next B, after that name, and then status. Imagine if I have some 20 variables here and it is required to transfer these 20 variables to some other, then I have to do that process for 20 times, because every time I can able to transfer only one of the variables from this list. So the complexity will be proportional with respect to this. Okay, so whenever the data size is increased automatically, so this concept also will be will create some problem to us. That's why here, what is the best approach to do that? It is better to pack the things, just like how we are packing the items or the things when we are moving to the new house. Here also the data can be packed as a single unit. If I know the mechanism to pack the data, I can simply pack this entire data into a single unit, and I can transfer this entire unit or pack as a single unit or single pack at one time. That is really great, very much helpful to us. But how can we pack the data? We know how to pack the things, that is fine. But how can we pack the data? To pack the data, we got 2 facilities in JavaScript. One of them is you can pack in the form of an array, or you can pack in the form of an object also. Remember, JavaScript is also object-oriented programming language, just like C++. Okay, one of you has asked me doubt in comparing with C++. Based on this, I can understand you have the subject of C++ also. Dear mentors, one of you can respond. Do these guys have C++ in their academics? Any mentor? Anup? Saket? Okay. So if you have C++ in your academics, you know that C++ is an object-oriented programming. What does it mean? Everything is in the form of objects. So JavaScript is also an object-oriented programming. Okay. So here actually two ways are there to pack the data. One is to pack the data in the form of an array. Another way is to do the same kind of packing using object. But the important thing is why two approaches to pack the data. Yeah, array is preferable when we want to pack similar data. Similar data in the sense all numbers into one pack, all strings into another pack, all Boolean values into another pack. That means so the homogeneous data can be packed as a unit by using the array. Okay, sometimes we need to pack heterogeneous data also. Heterogeneous data means the data that belongs to different categories, one number, one string, one Boolean. So such kind of non-homogeneous data, that is called as heterogeneous data. At that time, array is not the best choice. Then we can pack them in the form of an object. Okay, so these two are the mechanisms that we use in JavaScript to pack the data. So let us see practically what is array as well as object and how to pack homogeneous data as well as heterogeneous data by using these two approaches. So first of all, let us see about an array and then we can go for the object. So now what I want to do is, so I can remove all these things. I want to declare a number array here. So you can pack all the numbers into an array. Then we can call it as the number array. If you pack all the strings into an array, then we can call it as the string array like that. So here, if I want to declare an array, as usually we can declare some variable here. I have taken some variable of your choice is equal to declare an array, we can use the pair of brackets. We can call it as the brackets actually. Remember the terminology. This is called as pair of parentheses. These are called as pair of braces. These are called as pair of brackets. Okay, so the pair of brackets are used to represent this as an array. So instead of this array, what can we have means we can place the elements. Okay, so that it is the number, being the number array, it can store the numbers. For example, if I have taken something like this, what happened here, I pack all these 5 elements into a single unit and the name of the unit is ARR I have taken, for example. If I want to transfer this data, simply I can transfer the single variable. The single variable internally contains all this data, whether it is 5 elements, 500 elements, 5,000 elements also, all are stored into one variable. So my job will be easy now. So it is same as a pack. So if some 20 items are packed, 20 things are packed together, then we can transfer this as the single unit. Once this is received by the others, they can unpack and extract the things from it and they can start using it. Same approach we can follow here also. We can pack the relevant data, similar data. That means the data belongs to same category into a pack by using the array. And the syntax is like this. This is the number array. In the same way, I want to declare a string array, for example. So I can take some names here. I have taken the variable meaningful as names. And here each element is a string so that I can write the elements. The first element is Ramu, next element is Kiran, and third element is Bhanu, like that. This is called as the string array. Okay, like that you can take different kinds of arrays in our programming. Okay, so first of all, whenever we declare some variable, we should know its data type. How can we find the data type? We can use type of operator. Now I want to find the data type of this ARR. I can write type of operator and I can use ARR. Save it and you can see it is a type called object. In the same way, let me get the data type of this names array. Save it, you can get it as an object. That means if you take an array also belongs to data type object. There is no specific data type called array. In JavaScript, array is also a type of object. That's why the data type of array is also object. Up to now, we have seen the number data type, string data type, Boolean data type, okay, big int data type, null, undefined, Okay, so these all are the primitive data types we have already worked with. So let us see the list of primitive data types we used. These are the data types we used. So now we are going to work with non-primitive data types, and only one non-primitive data type is there, that is called as object. Okay, so if we take this particular numbers or strings, whatever it can be, all belongs to the same category. That means array, object, these two belongs to object category only. They belongs to object data type only. Okay, so like that we can verify the data type of the variable by using the type of operator. Okay, so whenever we declare an array like this, let me take one of the arrays here to have some lengthy discussion on this. Whenever we declare some array in the computer memory, how the memory will recognize this? The best part is when we have individual variables, each variable will have the name. For example, if I have taken A and B and the next one C. So now we can see here, these three variables have three different names. If I want to get this value, I can use variable A. For this variable, I can use C. For this variable, I can use B, because each data has a separate variable name. But when you come to this part here, all the variables have a common name called ARR. That means if I want to print this entire array, so let me print ARR. So it is giving the entire pack itself, but I don't want this pack every time, because even after getting the pack, I should know how to extract them individually. So how can I do that? Previously, if I take this, for example, I have taken A is equal to 10, let B is equal to 20. So now if I want A, for example, simply I can ask for A. It will give me only the 10. If I want B, I can simply ask for the value B, it give me 20. But here if I ask for ARR, it is giving me the entire set itself, the entire pack itself. As of now, this pack has 5 elements. Even it contains 5,000 elements also. Every time when I refer to this variable, it will return me all the entire very big pack like this. But I don't want this. I should know how to extract the individual elements from this array, because if I want to use, first I have to unpack it. Without unpacking, one cannot use. So how to unpack this? Unpacking in the sense, I should know how to access these elements individually from the array. How can I do that? Yes, whenever you declare an array, so immediately JavaScript will create the index for each element in the array. It will create the index. What is basically index means? The index represents the distance from the relative distance from the starting element. The relative distance from the starting element can be considered as the index. So for example, here I have taken some, this is the array I have declared here immediately. So the JavaScript will create the index values starting with 0 for the array automatically. We cannot control this index. We cannot modify this index, but we can use this index. So now each element will get a separate unique value as the index in this way. The index of first element is 0, second element is 1, and so on. So in C language also, or C++ or Java, everywhere, every every object index starts with 0 only. But what is this 0? Why it should starts with 0 instead of 1 basically? Generally, when we want to count the things, we start with 1, not with 0. But why the programming languages designed in such a way to start the array index with 0? Remember, index represents the relative distance from the beginning of the array. If you take this first element, how many elements distance from the beginning? It is just 0 elements distance, because being the first element, it has 0 distance from the first. That's why its index is 0. If you take the second element, it is 1 element distance from the beginning, so that its index is 1. If you take this third element, which is 2 elements distance from the beginning, so its index is 2, and so on. That's why the index always starts with 0 irrespective of programming languages. Okay, so now what is the use of this index? Actually, we have not created any index. Our job is just to declare an array, but immediately when this array is stored in computer memory, JavaScript will create these index values automatically. starting with 0 and increment by 1 every time. How it will be useful to us? By using this index value, we can extract the individual elements from this pack. Just we are thinking about unpacking. If I want to unpack this, it would be very easy to me. What I will do is I can write the name of the array and then I can write the pair of brackets. Within the brackets, I can specify the index value. If I supply 0 here, what does it mean? I don't want this entire array. From this array, I want the element at the index 0. Which element contains the index 0? Element 1 contains the index 0. So now let me save this. We can see the value is 10 here. So I just learned how to extract the elements from this array very easily. If I supply 2 as the value, ARR of 2, what does it mean? 2 index. So which element contains index as 2? Third element. So from this third element is 30. So now the value 30 has returned from here. Okay, like that I can extract these elements one by one from here. So now if I want to extract the first element, I can write this. Now if I want to extract the second element, so I can change this to 1. Okay, and if I want to extract the third element and the fourth element, okay, and the fifth element here. Save it. Now successfully I have extracted individual elements from the pack very easily. So the syntax we will use is write the name of the array, and within this pair of brackets we can supply the index value, and index value always starts with 0. So here this picture clearly represents so how the index will be organized. So first element contains index 0, second element index number 1, and so on. Even though this entire array contains a single name, but with the help of this index we can identify the individual elements. That's why here ARR is the name for this entire pack actually. But from this pack, if I want to identify or extract the individual values, I can write the name and I can specify the index what I need, so that I successfully extracted all the elements from this array and they are ready to use. Okay, now extracting the elements is okay. So here there are 5 elements, so that I write 5 statements in this way. But let us assume if it contains some 500 elements, because in real world programming, we are going to work with large size arrays also. If it contains some 100 elements, for example, so I have to write these 100 statements to extract each of them from this array. That is quite complex. So now I would like to simplify the extracting process, unpacking process, instead of extracting individually like this. Once you observe these 5 statements, only index value is getting changed everywhere. The array name is same, only index value is just incrementing by 1 every time. Then what I will do is I won't repeat the same thing again. Already be aware of the loops. Loops help us to repeat a particular task for many times. I can take that behavior and I can use it. Let me take the for loop, and you can take any variable. I am meaningfully taking it as index value as 0. Why I'm taking 0? Why can't I take 1? If we are iterating some normal statements, you can start with either 1 or 10 or 20 or 100. That is your choice. But when you are iterating an array, so we should to start with 0, because array index always starts with 0. And then index less than what is the size here? 1 2 3 4 5. I have taken the index value less than 5, and every time the index value get incremented by 1. So now what I will do, so simply I can take the statement here, the one statement I can place it, and in place of the 0 I can just supply the index. That's it, guys. Let me save and see. So I have extracted all the elements, unpacked the elements very easily, but I didn't write the same statement for 5 times. Instead of that, I keep it inside of the loop. So the loop has done this task for 5 times. That is proportional to the length of the array. So I'm able to do that. So like that, we can extract the elements with the help of the loops very easily. And you can do the same by using a while loop also. Let index is 0. And after that, we can write while. So the index less than 5. And I can write error of index here. And every time the post expression is mandatory. Now we can see the array is iterated for 2 times. This is by using for loop, and this is by using while loop also. Okay, so you are already aware of these two loops so that we can use interchangeably. And now if I increase the size, for example, if I take the value, I have added one more element 60, save it. We are able to extract only 5 values here, but the 6th value is not available. The reason is here we have mentioned some condition. Previously, the array contains 5 elements, so that I have mentioned the value as 5. But now the length of the array is increased to 6. Then I need to manually update this value to 6. Remember, the arrays, the size will be changing. The size will be changed when the program executes. So some new elements can be added to the array dynamically. Some existing elements can be removed from the array dynamically. These are the common things happening when the program is executing. At that time, how can we manually change this value every time? Because we know how many elements will be added to this or how many elements can be removed from this array. To overcome this problem, so in JavaScript, there is a property called length. On the array, we have to call the property length. The length property returns the number of elements of the array. To use this length property, take the name of that array, whatever it is. On that, we can write length property. The length property will immediately calculate the number of elements in the array dynamically, and it replaces this with that value. So now I can use that subject here. I can write arr dot length. So now what is the benefit here? Now it dynamically calculates this. Now whether it is 5 or 6 or 7 or 500, it will dynamically calculate and iterates this with respect to the length of the array. For example, if I have added 2 more elements to this array like this, save it. You no need to change this condition manually. It will dynamically calculate the length again, and now its length is 8. So this loop is iterated for 8 times. We got all the values. So this is the way we can iterate an array. That means we just learned how to pack the data using an array, as well as how to unpack easily by using these arrays. If you want all the elements, we can iterate using array. If I want only 1 or 2 elements, then I can write normally. For example, sir, I want only third element. At that time, you can write error of 2. Then it will return you the third element only. So then you no need to iterate this. This iteration is required only when you want to process all the elements of the array. But when you want to have 1 or 2 values from this array, then you can individually access them by using the syntax which we already discussed. And more interesting part here is in C++, for example. So if you try to extract some value outside of the given range, now I'm trying to extract the value from the index 20. Index 21 means it is the element in the position 21st position. But actually 21 elements are not here. If you run the same kind of program in C++, it will generate out of array index out of bounds exception actually. That means when you try to cross the boundaries, either left side or right side, so it leads to an exception that is called as out of bounds. Out of bound means, hey, you are crossing the limits of the array. Array contains some lower limit, some upper limit. If you try to get it outside of these ranges, definitely it leads to an exception. But in JavaScript, it is not an error. Let me save this program and see. It is not giving any error to us, no exception to us. Simply it is returning undefined. Whenever an array returns undefined as an element, that means that index is not available here. But in the same program will generate errors in C++. It returns the out of bounds exception, whereas in JavaScript, no such kind of exception or error. Simply it returns undefined means. So whenever we get the value as undefined, when you extract some element by using some specific index, it means that that index is not available here itself. So in that way, next, if I write -3, actually we know the index starts with 0. That means when you try to cross the boundaries in the left side, I have supplied -3. Same story, it returns undefined. Okay, that is the special important point if you are from C or C++ background. Okay, so this is the way that we can extract the values. Now, in JavaScript actually, there is another approach to write this iteration very easily instead of having this lengthy loop. This is the normal for loop which we are using. So normal, basic or basic for loop. So in C, C++, Java, everywhere this basic for loop is existed. So you should be very careful while you are designing this for loop, because the condition, what is that? The initialization, condition, post expression, they should be valid. If any one of them is invalid, either it can generate error or it can be the infinite loop. If you do not take the conditions properly, or instead of incrementing, if you write decrement operator here, it leads to infinite operation and browser will be freezed automatically. To overcome this problem, JavaScript has given advanced for loop to us. This advanced for loop can be useful only for arrays, not for normal iterations. If you want to go with normal iterations, definitely you can use basic for loop or while loop. But when you are iterating an array, then instead of using the basic for loop, we can use the advanced for loop. We can also call it as the for of loop. So what is the syntax here? It also starts with for keyword only. Just like the basic for loop, it also starts with the for loop only. Okay, here we no need to write the initialization, condition, post expression. Instead of that, just we can declare some variable whatever we want. We should use the of keyword. After the of keyword, we can write the name of the array. That's it. What happened means, during every iteration, the variable which we have provided here will get an element. So now let me print this. Save it. Now we have iterated this array for a second time also. Let me write a separate statement here for easy identification. Using for of loop. Save it. Now you can see using for of loop, you got the same iteration. Now let us compare this for loop and this for loop, which is quite easy here. This is very, very easy, because and easiness is one of the things. The another important thing is, so here it is purely error prone. You no need to make any mistakes here, because you are not writing any initialization, you are not verifying the condition, you are not taking care of the post expression. All will be taken care by the JavaScript behind the scenes. It will set an initialization, it will set the condition verification, it will set the post expression. So our job is just to declare some variable and off keyword for this array. Every time this loop iterates, so one element from this array will be available into this variable. Here we are accessing elements using index, but here we no need to use index also. Internally, it will use the concept of index. It will directly supply the element to this variable v. During first iteration, first element will be assigned to the v. During second iteration, second element will be assigned to v. So here I just printed the values, but you can write the business logic whatever you want here. This is called as advanced for loop, or simply we can also call it as for of loop. The reason is we are using for keyword as well as off keyword also. That's why we can call it as the for of loop. So I strongly recommend you to use this for of loop, especially when you are iterating an array. But if you are iterating some normal things instead of an array, then definitely you can go for loop. And very soon I will teach you another best approach. One more advanced method is there for the iteration. You can use even that also. That is your choice. But when you are iterating an array, especially, this approach will be very much useful to us. Okay, so the basic operations of an array are completed. The first thing is how to declare an array. And whenever we declare the array, what happens in computer memory, how JavaScript will provide the index values to these array elements starting with 0. And also I explain you why the index always starts with 0. The index represents the relative distance from the beginning of the array. So the first element has 0 elements distance, second element has 1 element distance, third element has 2 elements distance. That's why the index has designed in such a way. We cannot modify the index, we cannot control the index, but we can use the index to extract individual elements from this array. So that is the concept of this array. And then we focused on how to unpack to use these things. Initially, we try to extract them individually with the support of index, and later we use these loops to extract all the values from the array by using basic for loop, and then the advanced for loop that is available in JavaScript, which is for of, which is very, very simple when compared with regular for loop to iterate an array. So this is the basic operations of an array. In the next session, I will teach you the advanced operations of array also. Ask me if you have any doubts on this array. Now I will teach you the basic operations of object also, and we can close the session. So the array and its basic operations are completed. So the next one is an object. So this is also used to pack the data, but when the object is useful, when you want to pack non-homogeneous data, or in simple terms, heterogeneous data, that means data belongs to different categories, then the object is more useful to us. Object will help us to pack the data in the form of key value pairs. It's more convenient in many situations. If you have only elements, you can pack them using an array, but you want to pack it in the form of key value pairs, in the form of properties, then object will be more useful to us. So let me show you an example how to write an object, what is key, what is value, and all these things one by one now. So let me create a separate program for the demonstration of these objects. Yeah. So now I want to declare an object. So if you want to declare an object, for example, I want to take some test object is equal to, I have to use the pair of braces. Pair of brackets used to represent an array, whereas pair of braces are used to represent an object. Okay, so now let us see what is the type of this. Okay, so console.log, I can write type of test object. Save it. You can see the data type is object. So now what this object contains? Nothing, because it is an empty object as of now. Okay, how to fill the object? Array can be filled with elements, but the object can be filled with properties. So here we can write, so the property 1, comma, we can write property 2, comma, and so on. The difference between array and object is array can be used to pack the elements, whereas object can be used to pack the properties. What is property? Yes. Now let us take an employee, for example, here, or a person here, for example. A person is an object, have a lot of properties. What are the properties generally a person can have? He can have a name. So I can write name. Okay. Or simply we can write username, for example, or first name, for example, in simple terms. First name. So I'm using the camel case. First name, and the name is some Kiran. And after that, last name, Babu, for example. Age 20. Here, this is a property. This is second property. This is third property. So this is property 1. And this is property 2. And in the same way, this is property 3. Okay, now I have packed these 3 properties. What a property has? A property has the combination of key value pair. So this is the key and this is the value. Key and value are separated with colon, and properties are separated with comma operator. So here, this is the first property which contains key value like first name Kiran. This is the second property, contains key value pair. Third property contains key value pair. Key value pair will be separated with colon operator, whereas the 2 properties are separated by using comma operator. Next point is, all the keys should be strings in object. You should not take any number in the form of keys. All should be the strings, but you should not keep any quotes for the keys. Generally, when we are taking the strings, we use quotes actually. But if it is an object, if it is the key of an object, you should not use any quotes for that particular key. And come to the value part. If the value is a string, you can use as usually either single quotes or double quotes. If it is non-string like number or something else, you should not use any quotes. So now these heterogeneous data packed in the form of properties to represent an object. We can take many objects like this. For example, let me take the car object here. Car also has some properties. The first property is brand. Okay, so you can take the brand. For example, Suzuki is the brand. Okay, so next property is the model, something like Brezza. Okay, so next one is it contains some price. So for example, some 15 lakhs. And it contains some color property, for example, red. Okay, so now car is an object basically which contains the 4 properties in this example. So that the first property, second, third, and fourth, like that. This is called as an object. Now let us try to figure out the difference between array and object. Both are used for packing data, but the differences between them is, so array can be used to pack elements, whereas object can be used to pack the properties. What a property contains internally, each property contains internally key value pair, key colon value. Okay, the combination of key and value is called as the property. Hence, we have created. Next, let us take some third object for example, and I can close this. So student object I have taken. Okay, each student contains a roll number. Roll number I have taken, and it contains a name. Okay, it contains a branch, CSE or IT, whatever it can be, and it contains the college name, etc. So that's it. Okay, so like that, I have taken 3 examples here for better understanding about the objects. Okay, car object I have taken, person object I have taken, student object also here. So now these 3 objects are ready. Okay, now I can remove these 2. Example is clear. Okay, now how to extract properties. Whenever we take the array, after understanding the array, now we should know how to extract properties. For example, if you want to print the object here, so person, save it. Now we will get the entire object here because this person variable stores this entire object. So it will send the entire pack here. So now once you can expand, here you can see the properties here. You can find, after expanding, you can find a special property called as prototype. Ignore this property for some days, for few days, because once we learn the basic features and all, then we can move to the advanced concepts of the objects. Then we can discuss about the prototype. Actually, we have not taken any key here with the name prototype. And when you print the object, you cannot find it even. But when you expand the object in the console, after displaying all the given properties, the last property is prototype. So just ignore this for few days. And one more thing is, sir, actually you have given the order first name, last name, age. But when you expand this, why it is giving the order like age, first name, last name? Remember, array is an ordered collection. Array is an ordered collection. It can remember which element inserted first, which element inserted second with the support of the index. But object is an unordered collection. So here the order is not important. That's why it won't maintain any order. Generally, when we print it to the console, so it will display the content when we expand in alphabetical order. See here, A, F, L. In the alphabetical order, it can display the content, but the order is really not useful for the object because object is an unordered collection of data, whereas array is ordered collection of the data. Okay, so now when I take this variable, it give me the entire pack of data, but I don't want this entire pack. I want to extract individual properties. How can I do that? So if you want to access the individual properties, take the name of the array person, keep dot operator. keep dot operator and write the property whatever you want. For example, if you want to get the first name, if you want to extract first name, write the name of the object, dot operator and the key here. Then it returns the value associated with the key. Which value associated with the key here? First name Kiran. So it has returned the Kiran. Next. So write the person dot. If I want to get the last name, so person dot last name, you can see Babu, and in the same way you can write person dot age. You can find the age is 20. So if you want to extract the values from this object, we can use this kind of syntax. First you can write the name of the object, you can use the dot operator, and then we can write the key for which you want to get the value. It returns the value associated with the key. And objects do not have the index internally. Okay, arrays contains the index. That's why we can use the index to extract the elements. Whereas objects do not have the index, that's why we depend upon the keys. Object name dot, we can use the key. And one more syntax is there. So we can write the name of the object, and without using dot, I can write the pair of brackets. Within that, in the quotes, I can write the property. So now I got the Kiran. So if you want to extract the first name, you can write either person dot first name or person within the square brackets. You can write the key within the quotes. But when you compare these two syntaxes, the dot representation is very easy, and this is not so interesting actually. But sometimes it might be also useful to us. Just for subject, you can practice this for one time. Okay, in every situation we prefer to use this dot operator only to extract these values from this object. So now it is clear. Now you may get the doubt. So if I want to extract all the things one by one, so these are three objects, so we have taken three statements here 3 times. If it is having some 50 properties, I have to write this for 50 times. No, it's not correct. What is the way to extract all the things? In arrays, we can use loops, either for loop or advanced for loop, to extract all the elements from the beginning to ending. Is there any such facility available for objects also, to extract all the properties from first to last? Yes, for that purpose, we can use a special loop called for in loop. For in loop, previously we worked with for off loop. For off loop is different, that can be used to iterate an array. For in loop can be used to iterate an object. So what is the syntax here? Same, we can use the for keyword, and we can write some variable name here, and we can use in operator and write the name of the object. So here you can see the difference is for in, that's why I can write this syntax. For off loop, we can write in this place off. The second one is after off keyword, we can write the name of array here. But after in keyword, we can write the name of the object here. Okay, here you can take the variable whatever you want, but why I have taken specifically k means every time this loop iterates, it will return the key into this variable. So if, for example, if I take x here, x will get the key. What is the first key here? First name. During first iteration, this x will get first name, and during second iteration, x will get the last name. During third iteration, the x will get the age. Every time this loop iterates, this variable x will get the keys here one by one. That's why instead of taking x or something, why can't we take it as a key? So key is the more meaningful variable name instead of taking some x or k or something else. Okay, so now what I have to do here, if I want to extract these properties, I can write person dot key. For example, if I write, so it is incorrect. If I write person dot first name, what happened? It will go to the person object, search for the key first name. Yes, it is available here. Then it reads the value of that key Kiran. If I write person dot age, it will go to the person object and search for the property age. Yes, it is there, and returns the value 20. Now the key is the variable which gets the key every time from this object. If I write person dot key, it will go to the person object and search for the key with the name key. Is there any key here with the name key? No. But I need to search for the value of this variable, so that here I have to write brackets and supply the key here. You should not use any quotes for this. The reason is it should search for the value of this key variable. So this key variable first will get the first name, next it will get the second name, third it will get the age. That's why here we should not write the quotes. Now let me save this. You can see it has returned the values all easily. Let me write the console statement for easy identification using for in loop. Save it. You can see using for in loop also you have extracted this. Without writing 3 lines of the code, just write 1 line and you can iterate this by using for in loop. Now, if this object has even 100 properties, so it will take care of that, because it can iterate for 100 properties and every time it can return the value also. Now, if you want to extract 1 or 2 properties, we can use the dot representation only. But when we want to iterate all the properties of an array from first to last, we can use the for in loop itself. Now I want to print a very meaningful thing here. Only keys, only values I have printed. Now I want to print the key also. Then simply I can write key colon, save it. Okay, now you can see first name Kiran, last name Babu, age 20. That means this key variable receives the keys from here one by one in this way. Like that, we can iterate an object also by using this for in loop. So now I explained you the concept of array as well as object, and we have taken some use cases also for the arrays as well as objects also. Okay, so after this session, practice this array as well as object and try to write some more objects as of now, because I just explained you how to write an object, how to iterate an object, how to extract individual properties from an object. So many other operations are there to discuss, but we can discuss those advanced operations about arrays as well as objects in the next session, that is on tomorrow. But to understand those advanced concepts, one should have strong knowledge of the basic operations of this array and object, which I explained in today's session. So practice properly and try to attend for the tomorrow's session, where we can discuss the advanced features or properties of both arrays as well as objects. They are very hard, guys, very complex operations we are going to perform on tomorrow. Okay, so please write a good number of objects today. Okay, actually I wrote 3 objects as an example here, so you can write at least 5 or 6 objects by your own. Take everything. Fan is an object, air conditioner is an object, cot is an object, mobile is an object, bus is an object, student is an object, employee is an object, teacher is an object. So try to take many real world use cases and try to write as many properties as you can, identifying from that particular object itself. And also take some good number of arrays, numbers array, string array, and try to iterate that array for many times by using for loop, while loop, as well as for off loop also for the next 5 days. Okay. So ask me if you have any doubts about objects as well as arrays also.